was in my 20s, I had really, really long hair. Yeah. And I every now and then I'd put it up in a man bun.
Let's go.
And I was living in South Florida. I was living in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and my brother gave me the hardest time about my long hair. This is almost 30 years ago now. Anyway, so I was just looking at your hair. I was thinking about my hair kind of looked like that. Yeah.
Can you do it again?
I can't. I wish I could. I wish I could, man.
Let's go buck the system.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that would be awesome. Bro. If I could, I might just for fun.
You know, there's extensions, right?
Yeah.
You know somebody. We can make it happen.
Man, yeah.
Dan, thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah,
appreciate
awesome.
it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So over the past 15 years, Sandals has been a powerful force for the churches in Southern California and beyond. It has really been a dynamic force. It's helped so many people come to know Jesus. It's really been a God thing.
Yes.
A lot of strategic stuff in there, but a lot of prayer, a lot of processing.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what Sandals has become or even what Sandals is, can you give us a little picture of what that is?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the Sandals story, you have to start with our founder, Matt Brown, and his wife, Tammy, the founders of the church who are still here today. Matt is the senior pastor and our lead pastor today. But it's so much of the beginning of Sandals is their story as a young 20-something-year-old couple who God called to start a church in Riverside, California, here in Southern California. And Sandals was a church of just a bunch of young kids in those early days, meeting in Matt and Tammy's house.
Whoa.
A little 800 or so square foot home was the first meeting where the church gathered. And over the years, the church just moved around as it grew a little bit, moved to an apartment building, moved to a community center, moved to some offices somewhere.
No way.
Ultimately landed at Cal Baptist, renting the gym, the old gym, not the new gym. And since then, the church has just taken off by the grace of God. Incredible leadership and vision from Matt, and then a team that we've been able to build together over the years. And so now Sandals is a church of 14 locations up and down the state of California.
Wow.
As far north as Santa Rosa, which is north of San Francisco. We're in Central California in Fresno, and then a bunch of locations all throughout Southern California. But maybe even more importantly, our focus has been a lot on digital reach. And so we've been experimenting for years now, even pre-COVID, of how to reach and disciple people through digital means all over the world. And so,
in a lot of ways, you guys were on the forefront.
Pre-COVID, we invested years and years and years ago in staff, equipment, all that stuff.
Wow.
And
so COVID rolled around, you guys were
we were
pretty
positioned to pivot quickly. And so, the church today is, really an integrated church. When I say integrated, physical and digital, much like you would see from a big retailer, Best Buy or Target. They're integrating your digital experience and your physical experience. And so, a church that God is just doing amazing things in, and
That's
we're
incredible.
Just grateful to be a part of it.
To have something start so organically in a living room to now be all across California, that is really a God thing.
Amen.
And you guys have such a dynamic and fun team, just walking in, being able to meet some of your team and have the open concepts. It's an exciting place to be, man.
Thanks, man.
And so as we're getting into this conversation, our hope is really just to talk about the next wave of leadership.
Yeah.
When we're thinking about young 20-year-olds, young 18-year-olds, maybe even just high schoolers, and as they step into the next, as the church moves into its next phase of leadership, and these young bucks taking over, including myself being 30. What are you seeing right now? Because right now this is a dynamic place to work, and you're on the forefront of leading some of these next generational leaders.
Thank you.
What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, I think at a very, let's say the macro level, at the highest level, the church is facing what I would call leadership crisis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And what I mean by there's a crisis, there's a vacuum. If you look at all the churches in America that exist today, and you look at all of the vacancies in the pastorate, which there's a ton, then you look at declining membership, declining attendance, declining influence in our culture, you have to point to one thing, and that's just a lack of strong leaders in the church.
Wow.
And there's lots of reasons for that. I'll just rattle off a handful of them to ultimately get to the answer to your question. But why do we have a crisis? Why do we have this void of leadership in the church? Well, one, a lot of boomer pastors are retiring. That's one.
Yeah.
Two, the last couple of years have been so hard on pastors. A lot of not millennial, but Gen X, my generation pastors are quitting, retiring early, going out into the marketplace because it's just been a tough job. Number three is our young folks are not going to seminary. Four, our young, really gifted leaders are not choosing vocational ministry. They're not basically stepping into the pulpit. They're choosing so many other vocations. And again, there's a whole bunch of more reasons, but those are some of the key reasons why the church is facing this massive leadership vacuum. And even pre-COVID, the church was in massive decline. I mean, the number of churches that are closing in America is extraordinary.
Yeah, and you would say COVID exacerbated.
Absolutely. You know, COVID just multiplied that in a negative way, and so the church is really struggling. And even again, pre-COVID, the church was losing influence significantly. Culture had been shifting so quickly because of the digital age being ushered in, and the church just didn't keep up. Didn't keep up, lost its relevance. We have poor leadership, and so now here we are in 2022, soon to be 2023, and the church is struggling to find its way.
Wow.
And what I believe needs to happen is we need quite literally an army of young people who say yes to God and say, I'm going to give my life to rebuild the local church and to lead the generations coming up to Jesus. That's what we need. And it's incumbent upon my generation to play a role, and it's incumbent on your generation to play a role, and the generation behind you. We have to come together. We can't, for so long in the last 10 years, Gen Xers, my generation, and boomers have really been really negative and down on millennials. You've probably heard this, right? And when I first started sensing that, I said, I don't want anything to do with that because I want to influence the generations that are coming up. I don't want to, and I can't influence them if I'm bashing them or making fun of them.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
On behalf of all millennials.
Yeah. Well, and the silly thing is every generation kind of does that to the one coming up, sadly, I think it got worse, though, with my generation, sadly.
But that's true. I'm even hearing millennials talk about the next generation as well.
It's a natural sort of phenomenon, not a good one. But we need the generations ultimately to work together to figure out how do we solve the leadership crisis in the church. And so this is a massive burden for me, something I'm incredibly passionate about. And so we're taking our little slice, very small slice of the world at Sandals and really trying to do something about that.
Yeah. How are you doing that?
Well, man, there's a lot of different ways, but I'll again try to start at the top, and that is we're creating a culture and an environment where young people want to flock to. So when we designed the offices, just as an example, we designed the offices and said we want young people to want to see this place and want to come work here.
Your environments matter.
The physical environment. We want them to see the place and say, I want to work there. We're trying to create a culture and an environment where people want to come. And it's not just about what you put on the walls and making a cool open office and having free stuff in the kitchen. There's a lot more to it, and that's the culture that we're building. And so we're starting there, creating a great culture where people want to be. That's one. And then two, we're identifying leaders at a very young age. And then three is we're creating opportunities for them to lead. You learn how to lead mostly not from doing this. You get leadership some from that. But you learn leadership from leading. We call it learn by doing. And so we're identifying young leaders, and then we're creating, the big word is opportunities. Opportunities for them to lead. We're empowering them. We're equipping them. We're coming alongside them. We're coaching them, which includes encouragement and challenge. I call it the punch and hug. The hug is, I love it. Love you. You're great. You're amazing. The punch is, that wasn't okay. You need to get your act together. You weren't being honest there. Whatever the case may be. It's the punch and hug. And then, sort of closing all that out with celebration, and that's what is helping to make a difference in getting young people to want to be here, but it's also just making our church way better.
Yeah. Can you walk me through an example of what that would actually look like? So
For
let's
sure.
be really practical, maybe one story, one situation where you've seen that all transpire.
For sure, yeah. So I'll probably again do macro, micro, but we've got something we call Rogo Next Gen. It's a executive development program that we've created. We've got 8 staff members, young staff. Most of them are in their 20s, a few are in their early 30s, that are in this program. It's a 2-year development program. We've selected them based on seeing future senior level potential and capacity.
Whoa.
And what we do with them is, one, they sit in all of our leadership meetings. So when we have an executive meeting, which we do once a month, they sit in the meeting.
Get them around the table.
Get them around the table, and they don't sit behind. They sit at the table.
Wow.
They're literally around the table.
Wow. They don't have to earn their spot. Like,
Yeah,
you're
they're
like,
there. They're there.
We see something in you. Come sit with me at this table.
So they sit in all the executive meetings. We bring them to board meetings. We do 3 of those a year. They come to all of our strategy sessions that we do once a quarter off-site. And so they're close to our leadership. That's number one. Number two, they all get an executive coach, mostly non-staff members that are out in the marketplace that attend our church. They are the coach and the mentor to that person in their 2-year journey. That's number 2.
I love it.
Number 3, they all get big assignments. They're all leading and in charge of something. Each of them has these really, and we typically give them assignments that are ahead of them.
Oh, wow.
Meaning they're not ready for,
Yeah,
they're not
yeah.
qualified
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
and we know that.
Yeah. So they're not just being a fly on the wall in this process. They're not just, hey, come to the meeting, sit down, and don't say anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's an element of them learning and listening.
There
but
is, yes.
They're at the table.
Yes.
They're doing the hands and the feet.
Yeah.
They're not just given a role of like, hey, I need you to make sure all the lights are turned off, right?
For sure.
They're giving something significant to the church community.
I tell them, you're coming to the executive meeting. If you don't have anything to share, don't come. Don't show up.
Whoa.
If you're not going to say something and participate and engage, don't. And in fact, we're going to have someone else take your spot.
Wow.
And part of that,
puts it in their court. It's like, hey, the ball's in your court. We're giving you opportunity. You can't ever say.
Well, part of that is for their development.
Yeah.
That's one. But the other thing that's really important is they're helping to shape the future of where Sandals Church is going.
Wow.
And that is really key. Having a bunch of 40, 50, 60-year-old men and women lead the church trying to reach teenagers and 20-year-olds doesn't completely make sense if you think about it at that level. Now, we need to have wisdom at the table, of course.
Absolutely.
But we need the generations coming together to pull that off. So ultimately, we're creating lots of opportunity. We're making huge strategy shifts in this next year. And this team of folks in our Rogo Next Gen program, they're the ones who have crafted the communication plan, the change management plan, and they're out in front of the staff and the church communicating all of those changes as a part of their development of learning how to lead through change management. So those are just a few examples, but if you go across those 8 people, they're in charge of big things at Sandals Church, and they're young leaders, and that's part of how we're developing them.
And what have you seen from starting that? Because I imagine many of those people have become staff members or are still with you.
Yeah.
How successful has it been for Sandals?
Yeah, well, I think we've created an intergenerational church that's growing, thriving. All of our metrics are sort of up and to the right by the grace of God, including we're growing younger. And so the impact is extraordinary. We're 65% of our staff is 39 or 40 and under. So most of our staff is millennials and Gen Z.
Come on, man.
And
that's incredible.
Which is exciting. I'm 52 and Matt's 51. So considering we're in our 50s and most of our staff is a lot younger, is something we're really excited about. Why is that? It's for some of these reasons that we're talking about now. But this group of 8, back to this group of 8 in our Rogo Next Gen program, when other young people look at them and see them leading and on our platforms, they want to be here, and they want to not only be here, but they want to stay here, and they aspire to be in that kind of role and program in the future.
Right.